Hello, good afternoon. John with New York Metro weather. Here with the update on the weekend winter storm. We're very happy to finally have a forecast in place. It's been hectic over the last couple of days getting this all together, but let's break it down. Let's get right into it and show you guys what's going on. So we've talked a lot over the last couple of days about these two major disturbances, and the fact that the storm is forming at all is because these two disturbances are going to be phasing, which means that they're going to interact and form a larger, more powerful storm. We're looking here at the mid-levels of the atmosphere, about 10,000 feet up, and the colors are vorticity or spin in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And this tells us where those disturbances are in the atmosphere. And we have this first one here that comes down into the four corners. This is the first culprit for our storm, and you'll watch that slide off to the east here, at least part of it. And we have the second one that comes down from Minnesota, down here from Canada into the Minnesota region, and then the Ohio Valley eventually. You'll notice here the two of them eventually phase. They merge together, and they form a large, powerful storm near or just off the east coast. Let's run it back here real quick and just watch that all happen, and as the two of them phase and come together. This process is very intricate, and as you can see, it's very close to not happening, and it is going to happen, but it's going to be very important to figure out exactly how it happens, when the phase occurs, how strong the low pressure is, and exactly how this phase kind of evolves is going to determine where the low pressure track is. That's what's causing a ton of this uncertainty in our forecast. Let's look at the European model simulation for the Northeast. So this is Friday afternoon now, around 3 o'clock p.m. Could have some light snow breaking out along a frontal boundary, which is kind of hanging out here ahead of our main low pressure system. Not really much of consequence, but could see some light accumulation. It's very cold out there, so it'll stick if it does fall. Then our coastal storm starts to get going late Friday night into Saturday. The European model suggests that this low pressure will form off the coast and eventually start to turn to the north. Now, this band of moderate to heavy snow is going to form. It's going to impact parts of central and eastern New Jersey. It's going to eventually spread into Long Island and then southern New England. But you'll notice the New York Metro region is right on the fringe of that heavy snow. And we talked about this morning in our quick briefing, and it hasn't changed. We're right on the fringes here. As a European model suggests, this coastal low will really start getting going as it moves just to our north and east. So southern New England really gets slammed, and our area avoids that, but it really won't take much to change that for us. We're right on the fringe of this storm system on the European model. Let's look at the GFS model, for example. We know the European has been so far to the north and west. It's come back down to reality a bit now. That's why I said this morning that those historic storms it was showing for New York are off the table for the New York City Metro. Look at the GFS model compared to the European model. Way to the south and east compared to the European. Let's do one more comparison here so we can really get a good view. Here's the European model, and here's the GFS model. Just run that back one more time. And you can see the European right here is way further north and west, while the GFS is southeast, and it has been for several days. It finally started today, moving back towards the coast a little bit, but it's largely a non-event for the New York City Metro region. Now, the European model, we want to look at the ensembles. We've looked at this for days, and largely they've helped us understand that this storm threat was going to happen. But let's look at them again. And again, this is an ensemble, so it's the European model, and then we run it 50 more times. We tweak each of them, and it gives us an idea what the envelope of possible solutions is. You would think, as we got closer to the storm, that those possible solutions would shrink and the envelope of possibilities would shrink. That opposite happened today on the European model with the ensembles that came out this afternoon. Look at the spread in possible locations of the low pressure system here on Saturday morning. That is hundreds of miles. And the same thing on Saturday afternoon, hundreds of miles. So you have a bunch of members that say New York City will be grazed by this, and then you have a couple of them here, probably maybe 10 or 12 of them, that are much closer to the coast and suggest the possibility that some of that heavier snow would be pushed further west and closer to the New York City Metro. This is the group that we want to watch very carefully over the next couple of days, because if we start to see this group grow, then we could be looking at the possibility that some of that heavier snow could get pushed back towards the region. From a precipitation standpoint, we're right on the fringe, man. I mean, the New York City Metro region tends to be on the fringes of these events as it is, but this is tough. I mean, the heavy stuff is just off to the south and east, and very little is just off to the north and west. We're right on that northwest fringe of this storm, and that's why forecasters are having such a tough time figuring out, who's going to get slammed and who's going to get nothing. And it's going to be a very sharp gradient between those two things. If we want to look at the individual European members, I'll pull these up and we could take a look. The reason that this forecast is so low confidence is because of this. These are all individual weather models, the European Ensemble. But if you find New York City on all these, look at the difference in snowfall totals. Some of these have a ton of snow and some of them have zero. And if you look at each member, every one is almost completely different with what New York City is going to see. It really has been a headache. And when you look at these and you look at what forecasters really have to do to figure out the difference between these ensemble members, it's really all that not that much different. If we go back to the evolution of this storm, the ones that are closer to the coast and showing more snow for New York are simply phasing this maybe a couple hours earlier. That's it. And it's wrapping in closer to the coast as opposed to the other ones, which are a little further east. And when we go back to that precipitation gradient, it's going to be 25 or 50 miles that makes all the world of difference in New York with this storm system. Look at some of the higher resolution models. We have the NAM model, the North American model, and you can see that it simulates something in between the European and the GFS, which is not a bad solution at this point. It's kind of what we're going to ride for now. It is closer to the coast than the GFS, but it's not quite as far west as the European is. The European has been too far west for a couple of days now, so we don't want to be on the western envelope of the solutions. We'd rather be closer to the middle if we possibly can. So snow gets back to New York. Again, the timing would be, we look at back here, the snow starts Friday evening and then continues. Picks up in intensity Saturday morning, continues into early Saturday afternoon, and then begins to wrap up. But the real heavy stuff gets cranking on Long Island Saturday afternoon and into Saturday evening. You see that surface low here is off the coast, and that's close enough for parts of Connecticut and then central and eastern Long Island to really get slammed. Just like New York, the change in track is going to make a big difference if you're on the New Jersey shore, but especially if you're on Long Island, where the possibility exists, if this ticks even a little further west, that you'd be looking at major snows, especially eastern Long Island, if this low gets any closer to our area. So we're going to have to watch that very closely over the next couple of days. Again, going back to the ensemble members, this is where our uncertainty is. We have the ensembles have spread out even more today, and it just is a nightmare for us. I mean, we're running low on coffee in the office. It's been kind of just hectic throughout the last 24 hours, and it's really because of how sensitive this forecast is when the phase happens and when it doesn't. So with that being said, I wanted to take a look at some of the questions that you guys sent over on social media. You guys have been awesome the last 24 hours interacting with us. So let's get into some questions and we'll try to answer them and give you guys a better idea as to where we stand with this storm. One of the questions we got was in regards to the jet streak coming down here, this disturbance, and that the GFS has had some trouble with it. It has. It's been a little slow and a little slow to phase the two, which is why it's a little bit further east. But, at the same time, the European was too aggressive to phase it. The runs yesterday and the day before, the European model was showing a historic blizzard for the New York City Metro because it was phasing earlier. And since then, it's trended away from that. So I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Both models seem to have a decent handle on it right now. So we're going to have to watch the next 6 to 12 hours to see if the GFS starts to bump back a little bit to the west or if the European starts to slide away. Again, it's going to be so important. Just a couple miles is going to make a big difference for the New York City Metro in this one. Another question we got was, is it normal to have this much uncertainty just, a little over a day and a half out from the storm? And the answer is no. With the big ones and the big volatile storms, yes, sometimes we do get this, but this is more than usual, especially considering we're looking at these models and the spread of locations of the low pressure system is enormous. And so, some of this is a double-barreled low, meaning the model is picking up on two different low-pressure areas. But even if you consider that, even if you consider this is one low-pressure area and this is another, to have this kind of spread and this kind of spread is still significant. I mean, we're talking hundreds of miles again in regards to where the model thinks these low-pressure systems are going to set up and which one is going to be more dominant than the other. But to have this kind of spread is not typical of our winter storms. That being said, going back again to the European depiction, this is a very intricate thing going on here in the atmosphere with this phase. We've had these events surprise us before in both directions, and forecast models struggle with the processes that go into these two things. These two disturbances, the jet streams, it's very complicated and it's extremely fragile in how it all evolves. So to some degree, it's not normal to have this kind of spread with a winter storm, but when you look at what's going on here, it's not exactly all that surprising. A couple of questions about air travel impacts, when they're going to begin, and I'll kind of try to answer them all at once. But it's hard to forecast air travel impacts when it comes to these things, because the airports kind of make those decisions themselves in regards to the conditions. But it does look like light snow will break out Friday into Friday evening. I don't think that this will cause any major significant delays, but it's possible that some could begin. It also depends on where your plane is coming from, things like that. But the real coastal storm that strengthens and starts to really become a big deal happens early Saturday morning. So if there are going to be any kind of widespread delays or cancellations up and down the East Coast, it's going to be Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon. This is valid at around 2 o'clock p.m. on Saturday. I mean, you have a very strong low pressure off the coast and snow up and down the coast to some degree. So the airports, Philly here, Newark, JFK, LaGuardia, Islip, Hartford, Boston, that general area will probably have issues on Saturday morning. But it could start as early as Friday night in some spots with this very light snow and the cold temperatures that causing some issues. This is a cool question that we got, just kind of going into the accountability of weather forecasters and what we try to do a little different than anyone else. The first thing is we don't want to take any shots at anyone else that makes weather forecasts. It's a great community of people. Meteorologists have a tough job. We are literally trying to predict the future. With that being said, I think one of the things that comes into accountability when it comes to meteorology is communication, because the problems start to arise when you go and put a forecast out there that seems more confident than it really should be, or you're going on a limb and putting out an outlier forecast. I think what I try to do personally, is make sure that we just lay it out there. People, specifically in New York, they don't want the BS. They just want to hear what's happening. And if what's happening is we don't know yet, that's fine, but we want to explain that and let everyone understand what's going on. So, that's the deal. I could make some crap up about how we're so confident it's going to do this or that, but the reality is we're not. And this is a tough forecast. You can see it right here with this visualization of models that have no idea where the storm is going to go yet, and we're right on the fringe of where the snow is going to be heavy or nothing. And so that's it to me. I think it's about communication. People just want to know what's going to happen and kind of understand our process. And that's why we try to dive into it with things like this and just, kind of level with everybody. And I think people enjoy that. I hope they do. I mean, we try to just kind of lay it out there in an understandable and digestible way. Okay, so let's review one more time and then get to our snowfall ranges. So here's the deal. We have two disturbances that are going to be phasing across the Mississippi Valley. The first one is over the Four Corners right now. The next one is dropping down from Canada, doing so quickly on Friday. Models are mostly locked into this storm being a fringe storm for New York, but that doesn't really help us because the fringe is between nothing and a heavy snowstorm. So what we have to do over the next 6 to 12 hours is figure out which models are handling this phase the best, and if there's any possibility that this storm is going to tick a little further west or a little further east. It's going to be 25 or 50 miles that are going to make a difference. Right now, forecast models are in agreement that the New York City area will be right on the fringe between light snow or nothing and heavier snow. Our confidence is highest in heavy snow from central and eastern Long Island, along the eastern New Jersey shore, and parts of central and eastern Connecticut into southern New England. It's much less across the New York City area. We are not confident really that this is going to be a huge snowstorm in New York at all. That being said, as you can see, it won't take much of a shift in either direction to change the script of this storm for New York. So with that being said, let's pull up our new snowfall ranges. Okay, so here we are. You'll notice right off the bat that Islip has the highest snowfall potential of this entire storm. It's central Long Island. The possibility exists for even more snow than is indicated here, but this is where our kind of probability analysis landed with that. Central Park and Newark generally between 3 and 5 inches of snow at the moment, but the ranges on these you'll notice are enormous compared to our typical forecast. A little less snow the further northwest you head. So if you're in Morristown, New Jersey, or northwest New Jersey, confidence in significant snowfall is even lower there, expecting a couple of inches there. Slightly more in White Plains. Same deal in Trenton and Philadelphia. Along the New Jersey shore, slightly higher amounts. We're a little less confident in the big totals like we are in Islip in those regions, but looking like a borderline significant snowfall for a lot of the New Jersey coast. So this is our first shot at this. Take it in. We're going to post it on all social media as well. But with that being said, these ranges are huge, and we really want to stress that. Going back one more time to the European Ensemble precipitation forecast, we look at islip here, it's in that heavier precipitation. So is the New Jersey shore, whereas the areas further to the northwest are a little bit less, but New York City is still right on that fringe. Right now, the forecast falls within the 3 to 5, 3 to 6 inch range for New York, but it won't take much of a shift to change that as we move through the next couple of days. So with that being said, Friday night into Saturday, this is a winter storm heading for New York. It's not going to be, as it stands right now, an enormous or overly significant blizzard of any sort, but it does look like we will see some accumulating snow. We're right on the fringe, and we're going to have to watch these trends over the next 6 to 12 hours very, very carefully. Any shifts in either direction are going to change what we expect in the New York City Metro. So we'll be with you all night. We're reloading on coffee. We'll be here all night and then into Friday as well. If you have any questions on social media, feel free to get in contact with us, and we'll do our best to answer you guys over the next couple of hours and then into Friday evening. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll have further updates, unless of course you prefer to check in with Mike Trout for his weather opinions as well. All right, guys, have a great Thursday evening.